Hello, today I'm going to be practicing a routine I used during my primary practicum to teach fractions to Year 6 students using a deck of cards. My assistant today is Rachel, who I would like to pick up the cards on the table and select one and show it to the camera so that I can't see it. And then lose that card in the middle of the deck. Okay, good. Now, the number of cards we have is an even square number. A square number being a number that's multiplied by itself. Okay, now, your card is in one of these rows.
Yep.
Okay, out of a total of how many rows?
4.
4 rows. Okay, and how many cards are in that row?
4.
4. Out of a total of how many cards?
16.
16. Okay, good. So we have one row out of the 4 rows contains 4 out of the 16 cards. How many of the cards are in that row expressed as a percentage?
25%.
25%. And expressed as a decimal?
0.25.
0.25. Very good. We can see here, if we were to then turn around and write on the board, we could show that one row out of the total 4 rows means that a quarter of the rows contain the card. So 4 cards in that row out of a total of 16 is equal to 1/4, which is one row out of the 4. And we can convert 4/16 into 1/4 by dividing the numerator and the denominator both by 4. We can also write on the board for more able students that 1/4 is equivalent of 25% and 0.25 as a decimal. I can extend this a little bit further with more able students again by asking what fraction of the cards are in the same row when I start removing rows. So which row contains your card, Rachel? That row there. Okay. Now if I was to take this row away here, we now only have 3 rows left.
Yeah.
And your card is in 1 out of those 3 rows. How many cards are left on the board after I've taken away this one row?
12.
12. And there are how many cards in your row?
4.
4. So what 4 out of 12, 4 twelfths, is equal to 1 row out of 3. So 4 twelfths equals 1/3. If I was to do it again and take another row away, what fraction of the cards left on the table are in your row?
Half.
A half, that's right. So it's a half is 1 row out of the 2. And how many cards are in that row?
4.
4 out of a total of how many cards left on the table?
8.
8 cards in all. Okay, it was this row, wasn't it?
Yes.
Okay, good. Now, out of the cards that are in your row, how many of those cards are your card?
1.
1. Out of how many cards in that row?
4.
4. Okay, so 1 out of the 4 cards in that row is yours, so a quarter of the cards left on the table, exposed on the table, is your card. Good. Ooh. Now, can just recap all of this. We can recap entirely the same thing with less able students, or you can turn the questions around with more able students. Now, your card is in one of those rows, is it not?
Yes.
Okay. And how many cards are not in the row that contains your card?
12.
12. So 12 out of the 16 cards are not in the same row as your card. So how many rows do not contain your card?
3.
3. So 3 out of the 4 rows do not contain your card, and 12 out of the 16 cards are not in your cards row. Again, we can show this by 3 rows out of the 4 do not contain your card, and 12 out of the 16 cards are not in those rows. And again, dividing numerator and denominator by 4, we can show equivalent fractions going from 12/16 to 3/4. Now, as a percentage, how many of those cards are not in your row?
75.
75%. And as a decimal?
0.75.
0.75. Very good. Now, which row was your card in?
That one.
That one there. Okay, good. Now, if I was to collapse this row here, what fraction of the cards that are left are not in your row?
2/3.
2/3, that's right. So it's 2 rows out of the 3. 2 rows out of the 3 are not. So that's how many cards are not in your cards row?
8.
8, that's right. Out of a total of how many cards that are left?
12.
12. Okay, so we can also show, if you wanted to write this on the board, that 8/12 is equal to 2/3. And I collapse this one down again, and we can show that. Again, how many cards are not in your row?
Half.
Half. That's right. Half are in your row and half are not in your row. At this point it becomes the same as either way. So if I collapse that one down, we can then say, okay, of the cards that are left, how many of them in that row are not your card?
3.
3 out of a total of how many cards?
4.
4, that's right. So 3 out of the 4 cards that are left are not yours, so 3/4. Good. Alright, so next part of the trick, I now put them down in pairs. This is why I needed an even number. Okay, so we have 8 little crosses, giving us 8 times 2 being 16. So I'd like you to point to 4 of those crosses. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And those 2? Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, now, as a fraction, what are those? What's represented by those cards there? Of the total cards that we started with. Out of all the cards that we started with, what fraction of them are now in that pile?
Half.
A half, because that's how many of the crosses?
4.
4, that's right. 4 out of the 8 crosses are now in that pile, so 4/8 is equal to 1/2. Again, you can write this on the board showing equivalent fractions and how you would change the numerator and the denominator to go from 4/8 to 1/2. Right, I'd like you to pick another 2 cards, another 2 crosses, please.
That one and that one.
That one and that one. Okay, can't pick them up on this table. Okay, that one and that one, only leaving these 2 here. So we have the cards we have left is 2 out of the 8. How would you express that as a fraction? Simpler fraction?
Quarter.
A quarter, that's right. 2/8 equals 1/4. And how many 8s have we got here? How many crosses are in this pile here?
6.
6, that's right. So 6 out of the 8 crosses are in this pile, and 2 out of the 8 crosses are here. So we have 2/8 is equal to 1/4, and 6/8 is equal to, what was that, Rachel?
3/4.
3/4, that's right. Okay, pick another one of the crosses, please. That one there. Okay. Now we have one cross left. So how many cards in that cross?
2.
2. Out of the total, how many we started with?
16.
16, okay. And it's one cross out of the original 8. So 2 out of the 16 cards is equal to 1 out of the 8 crosses. So we can show that 2/16 is equal to 1/8. Again, you can write this on the board using a multiplication and division to go from 1/8 to 2/16. Right, now pick one of the cards, please. That one there. Okay. So, how many cards have we now got in this pile?
15.
15 out of the original
16.
16 cards. Okay, so we have 15/16 there and just 1/16 there. So the probability of this being your card is just 1 out of 16. You could also use this for probability lesson. Is that your card?
Yes.
Well done.